My sister posted a viral photo mocking me for finally moving out of our parents' house. Her caption read, "Finally, the freeloader is gone." What she didn't know? I was the actual legal landlord of that house, and their formal eviction notice was already in the mail. Welcome to Revenge Theory. I'm Dawn Wildman. I'm 29, and until a few weeks ago, I honestly thought moving out of my childhood home would be the quietest, most peaceful chapter of my life. I packed my things the way you pack when you are exhausted to your core and just don't want to fight anymore. Boxes taped silently, shoes wrapped in old hoodies, my laptop bag clutched to my chest like a shield. I waited until the house was completely empty, rolled my last suitcase down the driveway, and for a fleeting second, I felt something dangerously close to relief. Then my phone buzzed. It wasn't a text or a call, it was a Facebook notification. Someone had tagged me. Now, knowing my family, I opened it expecting some passive-aggressive meme. That's their love language, hurting you without taking accountability. But this was different. It was a photo of the exact driveway I had just walked down, with my old bedroom window in the background. The caption made the blood in my veins run cold. Finally, the freeloader is gone. At first, I actually let out a dry laugh. It was so cartoonishly cruel it felt unreal. But then I looked at the engagement. 1,234 likes. People weren't just looking at it, they were celebrating it. The comments were stacking up like bricks to a wall. My mom wrote, "No more cooking or laundry for a failure." My dad didn't type a word, which almost felt kind, until I saw he liked a comment that said, "Unemployed people should learn to live on their own." That was the exact moment my hands stopped shaking. It wasn't the insult that changed me, it was the absolute certainty behind it, the way my entire family collectively agreed on a fictional version of who I was, without knowing a single damn thing about my actual reality. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even shed a tear. Instead, I did something that might have looked pathetic to anyone watching. I went through and liked every single one of those hateful comments. Every single one. Why? Because I needed them to feel comfortable. I needed them to feel proud and untouchable. I needed them to truly believe they had won. Then I put my phone down, sat on the floor of my new luxury apartment, and made one calculated decision that shattered their reality forever. If you think this is just a story about a petty Facebook post, you better stick around, because you need to hear why that beautiful suburban house was never really theirs, and why their entire fake empire collapsed the moment I stopped choosing silence over my own self-respect. When people read that viral post, the narrative was clear. I was the deadbeat 29-year-old daughter who got kicked out, the girl who slept until noon, ate their groceries, and drifted through life with zero shame. That's the story my family had been selling to the neighborhood for years. It was convenient. It made them look like hard-working, patient martyrs, and it made me the punchline. But here is the multi-million-dollar truth that never fit into their neat little narrative. That 4-bedroom house in the nice Columbus suburbs, it was never theirs. It wasn't some reward they earned for a lifetime of hard work. It was a gift they were simply allowed to borrow. And for years they played house, pretending the actual owner didn't exist, even while she was sitting right across from them at the kitchen table. My grandmother on my mom's side, Lorraine, was a force of nature. She was old school, brutally honest, and fundamentally allergic to excuses. When I was a kid, she'd show up with groceries, take one look at our empty pantry, and start asking sharp questions that made my mother's fake smile twitch. Lorraine didn't hate my mom, but she absolutely despised my mom's relationship with money. The credit card bills, the random shopping sprees, the weekend getaways they couldn't afford. My parents would sweet-talk Lorraine into a loan and then act deeply offended when she asked for it back. When I was 8, my parents' finances finally crashed, and we had to move into Lorraine's house. I was just a kid. I only cared that the neighborhood had sidewalks and I finally had my own room. But my sister treated the house like a kingdom she had inherited. My parents treated it like a trophy. Lorraine, she treated it like a test. When my grandmother passed away, I was 22. I sat in a stiff black dress at her funeral and watched my mother cry like her heart was shattered. But I knew that cry. I'd seen her cry like that when the credit card bills arrived and she needed someone to bail her out. A week later, the estate lawyer called a meeting. My mom showed up expecting a massive payout. My sister tagged along because she craved the drama. I went because I thought it was just standard paperwork. The allayer slid a thick folder across his mahogany desk and spoke very clearly. Lorraine had made her decision years ago, and she was terrifyingly specific. The house was left entirely to me. Not my mom, not my dad, not split 50-50 with my sister. Me. Sole ownership. I will never forget the jump cut on my mother's face. Confusion morphed into raw anger and then settled into a terrifyingly cold fake smile. The allayer laid out the conditions. My parents and sister could live there for as long as they wanted. No deadline, no threat of sudden eviction. But legal ownership belonged to me. Lorraine documented it this way because she knew without a shadow of a doubt that if my mother got the deed, she would refinance that house into absolute oblivion within a month.
I should have spoken up right then. I should have drawn a line. But I was 22, grieving, and deeply conditioned to believe that being a good daughter meant staying quiet and shrinking myself to keep the peace. So I signed the papers, nodded, and we all went back to a house everyone still publicly called theirs. Within a month, my mom was hosting backyard barbecues like nothing happened. My dad was talking about remodeling his bathroom. My sister bragged about our property on Instagram. And then came the part that still makes my stomach turn. I started paying rent. $250 a month, every single month for 7 years. Not because there was a legal contract, but because my mother would sigh dramatically, complain about how tight bills were, and look at me like I owed her for the privilege of breathing. So I paid. I paid while she bought new living room decor. I paid while the DoorDash bags piled up on weekends. Every time I tried to silently remind myself I own this place, the words felt like ash in my mouth. Because in a toxic dynamic, legal ownership doesn't matter. Only psychological power does. From the outside, it was easy to label me a failure. I was always home, I was always in sweatpants, glued to my laptop. To my family, this was the ultimate proof of my uselessness. In their narrow worldview, a real job meant a uniform, a commute, and a boss you complained about. Anything else was just playing on the internet. What they never bothered to learn, what they never even asked about, was that my bedroom had quietly evolved into a highly profitable digital agency. It wasn't a hobby, it wasn't a hiding place. While they were busy laughing at me, I spent 5 years working as a freelance conversion copywriter and e-commerce funnel strategist. I was writing high-converting product pages, building email sequences, and writing ad copy for brands. I helped a local candle shop double their revenue in 60 days. I re-engineered checkout slows for fitness studios. I didn't do it for social media clout. I did it for airtight contracts, invoices, and massive direct deposits that went straight into a high-yield account nobody else knew about. I kept it quiet because every time I tried to share a win, my mom would wave her hand and say, "Staring at a screen all day isn't a real career, Dawn." My sister went further, telling her friends I was probably doing something sketchy on the dark web. So I stopped talking. I bought a mini fridge for my room to stop the complaints about groceries. I did my laundry at 2 a.m. to avoid the passive-aggressive sighs. I essentially ghosted my own family while living under the same roof. I wasn't stuck. I was positioning myself. I gave myself an 18-month exit strategy. I built a massive cash buffer, hired a professional accountant, and paid my taxes. I tracked every dollar because the last thing I was going to do was fail and give them the satisfaction of saying I told you so. When the day finally came to leave, I rented a small moving truck. I loaded the furniture I bought, the desk I built my empire on, and drove away. That's when the viral Facebook post happened. I let them have their week of online victory. I needed them arrogant before the reality check hit. On the 7th day, I woke up in my own apartment. The air felt clean. I made a premium cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up the master folder I had maintained for years. The deed, the probate paperwork, the attorney's letters, everything proving I was the sole legal owner of that property. I didn't yell, I didn't post a rant video. Paperwork has a beautiful way of ending arguments that feelings simply can't. I went to the post office and sent a certified legal letter to my parents' address, signature required. I forwarded the same notice via email so there could be no "I never saw it" excuses. It wasn't a threat, it was a formal statement of boundary enforcement. I formally notified them that I was the legal owner. Their right to stay had always been conditional on basic respect, which they had violated publicly. From that moment forward, we were doing things the way adults do, in writing. I gave them two choices. Option A, sign a standard month-to-month lease at fair market value, $2,550 a month, with all utilities transferred entirely into their names within 10 days. Option B, provide formal written notice of their move-out date according to state eviction laws. I hit send, flipped my phone over, and took a sip of my coffee. The first call came 10 minutes later, then another, then 24 missed calls and 33 text messages. The whiplash was spectacular. My mom texted, "How could you do this to us? You're trying to kill your father with stress." My dad left icy voicemails threatening to hire a lawyer and contest a will that had been ironclad for 7 years. My sister texted me, furious not about the house, but about the fact that I was making her look bad. When the 10-day deadline passed with no signed lease and no utilities transferred, they assumed I would fold, because historically I always had. But the old Don was dead. The new Don had boundaries and a timeline.
I picked up the phone and called the electric company. I canceled the service under my name. I called the gas company and did the same. I called the internet provider and shut down the high-speed Wi-Fi I had been paying for. This wasn't movie revenge. This was simply the real-world consequence of refusing to be an adult. If you want to play house, you have to pay the bills. The next morning, when the shutoffs hit, the illusion shattered. My mom called screaming that the house was freezing. My dad yelled that he couldn't work without Wi-Fi. My sister sent a voice note sobbing, calling me a psychopath. My dad finally broke. His voice panicked. He said, "Please, Dawn, just turn it back on. We'll talk, we'll figure it out." But talking was all we had ever done. So I sent one final text. "The accounts are in my name. I gave you the deadline. You chose pride." Within 48 hours, the inconvenience got too real. They packed their suitcases and retreated to my aunt's spare room. The people who had publicly branded me a freeloader were now officially living on someone else's couch. But I wasn't quite done. I needed to clear the narrative. I made exactly one Facebook post. No name calling, no emotion. Just a short statement clarifying my move. I attached a photo of the legal deed with my sensitive info blurred, clearly showing the county stamp and my name. Next to it, I attached a screenshot of their post calling me a freeloader. I wrote, "I've been quiet years to keep the peace, but I'm done letting people rewrite reality. If you laughed at that post last week, you laughed at a lie. Here are the receipts." The shift was instantaneous. The people who had liked their post started commenting, "Wait, you own the house?" Neighbors messaged me privately apologizing. My sister, who had been riding high on her fake viral moment, went completely, humiliatingly silent. Nothing destroys a narcissist faster than losing control of their audience. I didn't gloat. I didn't ruin them. I just stepped back and let their own actions deliver the consequences. A week later, I officially listed the house with a real estate agent. I didn't want leverage over them. I wanted pure, unadulterated freedom. When the property sold, I didn't throw a party. I sat in my quiet apartment, looked at the massive wire transfer hit my bank account, and felt my entire nervous system finally relax. I used that money to scale my business. I hired more contractors, upgraded my tech, and built a massive emergency fund. I also paid for therapy, not because I was broken, but because I refused to carry their toxic voices into my successful future. My family? They had to move into a tiny, cramped apartment on the edge of town. No backyard, no guest room for my mom's fake perfect barbecues. My dad had to start driving Uber to make ends meet. My mom had to take a part-time retail job, and when she tried to pull her victim card at work and borrow money, her hours got cut. My sister's aesthetic social media grid turned into blurry photos of secondhand furniture. Occasionally, they tried to send out feelers. My aunt will call and lecture me about forgiveness and family. I just ask her calmly, "Are you paying their rent? Are you putting the utilities in your name?" She usually stammers and hangs up. It's funny how the people who demand you sacrifice everything for toxic family are never the ones willing to open their own wallets. Even my toxic ex-boyfriend reached out, trying to slide into my DMs after seeing how successful I actually was. I blocked him in 3 seconds. People ask me if I feel guilty. The honest answer is no. I feel a bit of grief, maybe, because every girl just wants a normal, loving family. But love without respect is just manipulation in a nice outfit. If there is one thing you take away from my story today, let it be this. Never confuse kindness with permission to be abused. Never confuse silence with weakness. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are the ultimate form of self-respect. And consequences are not revenge. They are education. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when people try to paint you as the villain is hand them the brush, let them finish the painting, and then calmly buy the entire art gallery. Thank you for tuning in to Revenge Theory. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me in the comments how you would have handled this. Until next time, stay strong and know your worth.